Although we know that Excel is supplied as a massive sheet of rows and columns, those rows and columns have all been given the same width and height. We can adjust those column widths, adjust those row heights, so that they fit and display the data that we're after so much more easily. Let's take the sample file sample sales large that will require us to do some column width and row height adjustments. On the first sheet, forecast, there appears to be no problems. But if we go in and start to add people's surnames, so Bob Hayward, Rita Jones, and Sue Fernandez, we see that the text is not displayed. It is in the cell because we can see it appear in the formula bar, but it's not physically displayed on the screen because there are contents in the next column that cause the text to effectively be truncated at the edge of the cell. Now the easiest thing to do here is actually to adjust the column width. So we go to A, and between the A and the B at the top here, you'll see your cursor changes into a vertical line with an arrow pointing to the left and pointing to the right. At that point you can click and drag, and you'll see you get a little tooltip that gives you how wide you're going, both in pixels and in points. Now when you adjust a column width, you adjust the whole column width. You can't have one cell that's not as wide as another. The whole column has to be adjusted. So a little bit of planning is sometimes required. Let's just go back and show you a quick way to do that. So they're not displaying. I need the column to go wider. I go to the top, and at that point there where I have previously grabbed and dragged, I'm just going to double click. It auto fits the column. So the column goes as wide as the widest entry. Now that's not a dynamic thing. If we were to make an edit, you'll see the column now is not wide enough because it has not auto fit again. You'd have to go back to the top, A to B, double click, tell it to auto fit. So that's widening a column. Always go to the top right hand side, between that letter and the next letter, grab and drag. So it's auto fit to the largest cell. Now on our actual sheet, column A is full of hashes. The column is not wide enough to display the dates or the numbers within that column. So we can do the same again between A and B at the top, double click, and we auto fit to the widest date. Now in actual 2013, they're all hashes. All of these columns are not wide enough to display. Notice that text doesn't care. It will attempt to go into the next cell. If it can't, it will go behind. Whereas we can see Sue is visible because it can sneak a little bit into E. So I need to auto fit these columns. Well, I can do them all in one go. If I highlight the actual columns, click on the first and drag across to the last, that's highlighted all the columns all the way down to the bottom. Top right hand side, double click, auto fits them all. Now you can do multiple select. I could take B, C and D for example, and just click and drag and it'll widen them all the same. Let's look at the sheet called large. Here we have a slightly different issue in that the columns aren't wide enough. Double click and that widens up. Now the description is slightly different. There's a lot of description here. If I were to try and widen that column, it becomes quite wide, and that might distract from what I'm trying to do. So I'm going to drag that back a little. And instead of widen the column, I'm going to increase the row height. Now I can effectively do it the same way. I select the row, go to the bottom of the row, and you see you get the double-headed arrow, and I can click and drag as far as I need to go. Or, just like the columns, I can double click and it will go as high as it needs to. So there's that much text in there, it needs to go that high. If I were to slightly widen, you see then you've got a bit of extra space, so double click would then close that extra space up. So it goes as high as the highest cell effectively. Do 3 and 4 together, highlight both, just to the end of 4, which is the end of the selected rows, double click, and they go as high as they need to. So we can increase row width and decrease row width the same way. Select the row, drag in. I can even make them go very, very thin. Or double click to go as high as the highest cell in that range.